Hello, everyone. I see people are their computers are working to join us. I see a lot of names I am familiar with from yesterday's webinar that we had, and I'm seeing some new names, so that's good as well. Again, thank you for joining us. It's a little past 11:30. We want to be respectful of time, so we're going to get started. Yesterday, we had a similar webinar where we had a panel of small business exporters from Maine. And if you are watching this one, you will get a recording of all four of the webinars when the webinar series is done. You don't have to worry about that. We'll also have a link. We're going to put them on YouTube in case you want to send it to friends and family. My name is Peter Harriman. I work for the Maine Small Business Development Center, and we're hosting this series in collaboration with the Women's Business Center, the SBA, and many other partners that we're going to get to during this. But this is day 2 of a 4-day series. There are 2 other series going on tomorrow and the next day, all starting at 11:30, all the same Zoom link, by the way. And tomorrow will be export business planning, and then the next day will be obtaining capital for your export business. This is being recorded, and so we do encourage questions that come up. And if a question comes up, the best thing to do would be to put the question right in the chat. I'm going to put a chat message right now that should make the chat come up on your screen as well. It should blink saying that you have a new message there. So if you have a question, especially a general question, feel free to throw it in there at any time, and we will circle back and get to it. It is a pretty small audience, so if it's a question that needs a little more deep dive or explanation, we can probably do a verbal one as well. But as I said, we got a lot of information to cover. It's going to be recorded. You're going to get the recordings, so hopefully that's going to work for everyone. I'm just going to admit them. So I am going to hand it over to my friend Brad Curry with the SBA.
Excellent. Thank you, Peter. And thank you for joining us again today. Today, we will be talking about resources available to assist your export venture. Our panelists are Peter Harriman from the Southern Maine Small Business Development Center, Zinat Turk from the Maine International Trade Center, Brent Hoots from NaviTrade, and Mark Seacrest. I practiced that before and I almost said it completely off wrong again. But he's from the international law firm of Sandler, Travis, and Rosenberg. So starting us off today will be Peter Harriman. So I'm going to kick it back over to him. Peter is the Center Director and Certified Business Advisor at the Maine SBDC at University of Southern Maine in Portland. He works one-on-one with entrepreneurs and small businesses in Cumberland and York counties to start, grow, and manage their businesses. Peter has been with the Maine SBDC for 7 years and was awarded the annual State Star Award in 2018, promoted to Center Director for the Portland office in 2019. Annually, the SBDC is a resource offered to clients at no cost that helps thousands of entrepreneurs throughout Maine start businesses, access capital, create jobs, and quite simply do business. Welcome, Peter.
Hey, how you doing? Thanks for the introduction. I'm gonna try to get it back onto me. There we go. Yeah, so I am part of the Maine Small Business Development Center, as Brad said. Especially during the pandemic, we definitely shined where we delved into anything business related is what we try to do when we provide advising, and it's free, no cost advising. I say no cost, I prefer that over free because it is taxpayer funded. So you've already paid for us, so get your money's worth, right? So there are 14 advisors throughout the state of Maine, and we do purely that, advising. We are going to try to delve into the topics that businesses care about, whether that be taxes, business entity type, pricing, marketing, you name it. If you're a business, there probably wasn't any kind of instruction manual that you were sent by the state or anyone saying how to run your business. And that's what we try to help with, is provide resources either directly through us or referrals to other partners to help you understand some of the more complex issues of running a business. Because as a small business, and as many of you probably already know, you don't have the luxury or maybe even the budget to hire a whole bunch of professionals on your team. You are the team. Congratulations. So you are wearing many hats at once. And especially in today's day and age, where you have the internet with so much information out there, it gets a little confusing if you try to delve into the topic yourself. So that's where we came in, where the state and the federal government both agreed, hey, maybe there should be a resource out there that you can access for, based on taxpayer funding, so no cost to you, where you can get the proper resources or be pointed in the right direction, right? And we are not just for people looking to start businesses, though that is primarily 60% of our clients are people looking to start businesses when we look at the numbers, but a large majority of our clients are already in business, especially some of you that are probably attending this right now and looking to expand into the export market. That's where we can help you. We can give you pointers on how to write a business plan, which will be the next day. We're going to tomorrow at 11:30. We're going to talk about, hey, if you have an international business, there are parts of the business plan that you need to expand upon that isn't in the traditional business plan that you're going to have to talk about, such as risk of currency risk, working with XM Bank, working with a whole bunch of financing that the SBA has, which is day 4 of this series. So definitely tune into that. And we can help you with other logistics, such as hooking up with Mitzi, who is going to be the next presenter that we talk to get some information, or looking at, for instance, resources that you might have never known were available, such as Google Market Finder, where you can put in a website and Google's going to tell you some of the countries that might be a top priority for you to look at exporting to. So there's a lot of different things that we can do. But as I said, we primarily are trying to stay on the cusp of what is important to businesses. So during the pandemic, we saw our numbers increase, basically double what we usually do, because people were interested in the PPP or the EIDL or the Charter Venues Grant or the Restaurant Revitalization Fund or the Maine Economic Development Grant, right? A lot of things happened during COVID, good and bad. And we were there to help you. And we plan to continue to help you. The Maine branch has actually been open for 40 years. We're one of the oldest SBDCs in the country. We're one of the pilot programs with the university. We're paired with the University of Maine. And we're going strong. There's an SBDC in every state. But I would like to toot the horn of the Maine SBDC. We have a lot of great content online. We have great advisors. We always get the highest marks for satisfaction. So again, if you're a taxpayer, you've already paid for us. So get your money's worth, reach out to us. We have a website in which you can, in the top right corner, there's a request advising button. So if you just click that and put in your information, we usually get to you, an email out to you to set up a meeting, usually through Zoom, and we can talk to you. Usually the sessions are an hour long or so. Again, we can talk about import-export, we can talk about management, we can talk about hiring people, we can talk about taxes, whatever a small business is concerned with, that's what we are dealing with. With that being said, again, I want to be respectful of time. So I'm going to turn it back over to Brad.
Excellent. Thank you, Peter. And I've looked at the Maine SBDC's YouTube page. You are well on your way to being a YouTube star, I tell you. Peter's got some great content on there. He's the main one who does the videos for the Maine SBDC. And there's so many great videos and information that he's got on there for you. Our next speaker is from the Maine International Trade Center, which was by far and large the most referred to resource yesterday during our panel. Maine International Trade Center is coming from Maine International Trade Center is Zeynep Turk. Zeynep is a senior trade specialist at Maine International Trade Center, as well as the director of Study Maine. Welcome, Zeynep. Please tell us about the great services that Mitzi provides.
Hello, everyone, and thank you to SBA and SBDC and other partners for inviting us to be a part of this panel discussion. Yes, I'm Zainab Turk from the Maine International Trade Center. I've been at the Trade Center 16 years now, and always happy to help Maine businesses. Can we go to the next slide, please? Think of the Maine International Trade Center as the economic development agency for the state that focuses on anything international trade related. We're always trying to be a resource and make connections for Maine businesses and individuals. So it's a public-private partnership. We're under the Maine DECD, Department of Economic and Community Development umbrella. And we also have a chamber-like structure where there are the memberships involved, but we don't turn anyone away. We're always happy to help, so you don't have to be a member to reach out to us for assistance. Some of our services, we do customized consulting and research. So you can reach out to us and say, hey, you know, I've been nationally growing and I'm beginning to look at international. What, you know, this is what I export. What do I need to do? You could be saying, hey, we've been exporting to Germany for a number of years, but now we're beginning to look at Asia. My product, do I need a phytosanitary certification, or do I compliance related questions, shipping related questions, logistics, banking related questions. So we're not the experts, we're more like jack of all trades, and we do connect you to the experts. We do have an extensive network of connections across Maine and around the world. So we're always happy to, these are pre-vetted, and we're always happy to make those connections. We also help coordinate participation in overseas events and trade shows. Can we go to the next slide, please? So we have, on top of our regular services, we do have four different initiatives. I'll start with Study Maine, as it's near and dear to my heart. Study Maine helps attract international students to the state. I did come to Maine many years ago now as an international student, and now I'm very happy to help other educational institutions make connections and promote their programs overseas. And as much importance as it has for cultural implications, it's also a big economic support for the state. There are studies out there that each international student nationally brings over $70,000 to an economy. And we work with high schools as well as universities. Invest in Maine is to help attract international businesses to the state. And these go hand in hand at times, because someone that's looking to invest, bring their business or open an office or a manufacturing facility in Maine also wants to know that their kids can go to, you know, good educational institutions and have a good education here. So we try to collaborate a lot. So we try to promote Maine and compete with other states to tell them about why they should look at Maine if they're looking to expand into North America. Defense Industry Maine is to give economies of scale to businesses that are in the defense industry. That could be composite related businesses and beyond. They can tap into different grants. They can jointly exhibit at some trade shows. And Menaldo is the Maine North Atlantic Development Office, where it started many years ago when Ameskip shipping lines from Iceland began servicing the port of Portland, and Iceland and Maine started some good business connections. And then we decided to go beyond just Iceland and look at the whole North Atlantic. And there are lots of connections made around the Arctic related issues, climate change, blue economy, education, and beyond. Can we go to the next slide, please? And this step, which is the state trade export promotion grants that are through SBA, we so appreciate our SBA's support with that. Maine International Trade Center manages the grant, administers the grant for the state of Maine. These grants are all over the US, and they're to help small businesses expand internationally and do more international business. And SBA eligible Maine companies can receive up to potentially $20,000 per year. And there are different buckets: international business development, export skills development, export marketing assistance, international e-commerce, and digital marketing. And we really would love to have our businesses tap into these. It's there for you to use, and we are happy to kind of help you through it, through the application. If you want to kind of reach out and ask, well, would this qualify? Would that qualify? And if we go to the next slide, there are some examples of how these grants can be used. For example, consultant fees for legal, marketing, and tax experts to enhance market entry strategy. So we can actually, like I mentioned before, we are more of jack of all trades, but we have connections with experts. So if you're looking into like legal documents or making sure that tax-wise you'd be okay, if you're entering Canada, let's say, we can actually connect you with the experts, and then they can, their fee, consultant fee, could be covered. It's a 20% to 80% match. So you would be responsible for 20% of the total cost, up to a certain, I said 20,000 per year. But we definitely are happy to chat with you about these before you pay for these services. Trade show participation costs for international shows, but also for domestic shows, as long as they have an international component. For example, there was a Boston Seafood Show last month. It was I think end of April, the STEP would cover that because there's a good presence from international exhibitors there. So it could be booth fees, international travel. Please keep in mind that that's a federal grant. So there are certain guidelines, but definitely it covers some. And then shipping costs. You also can use this if you don't want to exhibit, but just want to walk a show, just visit a show to make connections. Your entry fee, ticket could be covered too. Training and export skills development, including export compliance audits. And then there are more examples that, again, I'd be happy to talk to you one-on-one about these. And if we go to the next slide, I just wanted to, I kept this brief, but always happy to answer questions and connect after this program. Our website is listed there, as well as if you wanted to email to our general mailbox, but then my email is turk@mitc.com, and my phone number is listed there too. So thank you again, and hope to connect with you and help you with your international business market expansion after this program. Thank you again.
Thank you, Zina. Mitzi is a phenomenal partner that we have, and we rely on tremendously for all things export related. We reach out to you and refer to you all the time. Thank you very much for being here. From Navitrade, we have Brent Hoots. Brent is a trade credit and political risk program broker, helping companies to better manage and execute their international and domestic transactions. He is the center director and a certified business advisor at the Maine SBDC at University of Southern Maine in Portland. He works one-on-one with entrepreneurs and small businesses in Cumberland and York counties. I think I'm reading the same thing. I'm sorry. I'm reading that. I got a mixed up. I copy and pasted way too much on that.
I like this Brent Hoots guy. It sounds like me.
He sounds a lot like Peter.
I was going to go with it.
I'm reading it. I'm like, oh wow, he's a business advisor as well.
Whatever.
Hopefully, Kelsey can edit all that out. So sorry about that. Let me. Oh my goodness. Well, Brent, I'm gonna have to let you introduce yourself because I messed your introduction all up for you, and I don't have it in front of me right here. My apologies.
That's fine, Brad. No, that's okay. So I've gone over to my slideshow, starts like this, but so my name again is Brent Hoots, not one of the other panelists. And my company is Navitrade, and I'm a broker specialist. And one of the things that I focus on is export credit insurance. We're going to do a really quick run through on this. I usually spend an hour talking about these things. But so the basic concept on export credit insurance is that we have an underwriter. We would find an underwriter that protects my client against non-payment by an overseas buyer. So my client ships a product or provides a service to an overseas buyer. Let's say they ship $100,000 of product to Brazil and extended net 30-day terms. And if we have the program in place and then the Brazilian buyer doesn't pay my client, then we turn to the underwriter, and the underwriter will make my client whole. That's the basic concept. But it's much more nuanced and subtle, the actual different things that are going on. And the next time we all get together and you give me 2 hours to do this, I'll be walking you through a quick story about a typical middle market to smaller company that is pursuing international. And what's really interesting is to stop and look at the different people at a company, what they're trying to do and what their issues are. So you might well have, we see this all the time. We have a really nice, well-managed company, good management team, and the head of international has done great. She's found overseas opportunities, maybe in Brazil, and their market penetration strategy becomes finding that right partner. So they're going to be teamed up with a distributor in Brazil. So this is a great, home run. They're doing really well. Turns out this distributor has issues. They're great, but they're looking for net 90-day terms, right? And they think they can do 100,000 a month. But net 90-day terms, that becomes problematic for the next person on our list, the credit manager at a company. So our credit manager is stopping and saying, let's do things reasonably and let's apply best practices. So we see it all the time that there are opportunities to go there to make it really happen. And it's the right thing to do for a credit manager to say, gosh, that's tough, net 90-day terms. Also, we'll have a CFO at a company that looks at an international opportunity and says, wow, that's exciting. But if you're saying net 90-day terms, if we're going to start doing this in multiple markets, net 90 terms, net money outstanding means we have cash flow issues. And I've already talked to my bank. So, and they're not going to finance this. So very quickly, we have companies and a CEO, well, growth, right? Growth, that's what we're all about, is the CEO's mantra. So we have companies all the time that have opportunities that kind of languish or get stuck, and it becomes a quagmire. And this is what the point of an export credit insurance program becomes. And another time we'll go into depth about distributors. Real quick comment on overseas distributors. As your partner, we need to help them achieve the cash flow and the product cycle and the cash flow cycles that they need. When we do that, we open the floodgates. We're going to do a ton of business. If we constrain our overseas distributor, that's constraining our business. And there are a lot of ways to achieve this. And another time we'll talk about it. But in the story, we walk through all the things that happen for companies, and it's a lot of times driven by terms and credit limits. And then we're doing a trickle of the business that we could be doing. And really what it becomes is my clients are existing at a certain level, applying best practices. But a lot of times with international transactions, they're wanting to go somewhere beyond where they can be. And that's the point of a partnership with an underwriter. So a partnership with Ex-Im Bank is a great export credit insurance program. Partnered with Ex-Im Bank, it allows my clients to get to where they want to be and to open up the business and to let it really happen. So we start by talking about export credit insurance protects my client against non-payment. The truth is my clients don't think about non-payment. They think about, this is an opportunity. I got to meet the needs of that distributor. How can I do that? And then we have a credit manager says, wow, we want to do this business, but I've got to be prudent to manage these credit limits and extending of terms. And we have a CFO that says, wow, this is great. We want to pursue this, but I have cash flow issues. So we put in place an Ex-Im Bank export credit insurance program. We solve all these areas of issues and open up the business so that you can achieve the promise of what you hope to achieve. And that is just a very quick overview. The last comment is that it's fast, easy to do. An Ex-Im Bank, for example, has no payment up front, no minimum for the year, and it's pay as you go. So if you just have one transaction through the year, you'll pay for it a month later after the transaction. And the pricing is 0.5%. Think in terms of 0.5%. So it is the low-hanging fruit, very easy. And you can find a broker specialist like myself or others that will manage the whole process for you. And again, we're talking about international opportunities and bumping into these sales and risk and financing issues. And export credit insurance helps us balance all of this and make it happen. And I'm just going to leave you with this last view of I think the coolest globe I've ever had. It's like, and it's reflective and such a metaphor for international business is exciting. And there are great opportunities out there for just about everybody. So you're so smart to call Mitzi and to call Brad Curry and Peter and start pursuing it. So thank you. Thanks for letting me participate.
Excellent. Thank you, Mark. Appreciate you being here as well. Dang it, I did it again. Sorry.
That's okay.
I'll have to take you out fishing to make up for it sometime, Brett.
Excellent. Stripers, they're on the way.
So wrapping up our panel is Mark Segrist. Mark is a member of Sandler, Travis, and Rosenberg, PA. His practice is focused primarily on import and export trade law and assisting clients in acquiring duty-saving benefits under the first sale rule and other customs declared value-related initiatives. With respect to imports, Mr. Segrist, focuses primarily on providing strategic advice and counsel to a whole wide range of multinational clients on international trade and custom law matters, including product classification, complex valuation-related issues, product marketing and labeling, prior disclosures, liquidated damages and penalty mitigation, and so much more. Mark holds a JD from the John Marshall Law School and a BS in Business Administration from the University of Nebraska, Lincoln. Mark, please, welcome and thank you for being here today.
Thank you very much, Brad, and thank you to the SBA for having me and for all the speakers before. I'm happy to speak last, but it's a little bit of a cold blanket, hopefully. Not so much that it will deter you from exporting, but one of the reasons we get brought in, my law firm in particular, with companies that are exporting is on the legal compliance side of things. You know, companies and the businesses and the VPs of sales, like Brent was just talking about, and the CEOs, they talk about growth, they talk about sales. And sometimes the legal department or others need to step in with those companies and say, hey, let's make sure we're also doing this compliantly in accordance with the law. So I'm going to share a little bit of a screen here, if that's okay. I don't know if this is the correct screen. Can you all see the full presentation?
No, not yet.
Not yet. Okay, let me try this. Does that work better?
No, hold on.
Let me, I'm sorry, I need to press share screen. That usually helps. So just 1 second. How's that looking?
There
is that the presentation mode or?
Not yet. Yeah. Hit from beginning. Yep.
There we go. And then I will hit. How's that look?
Good.
Perfect.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. So I know I only have a couple minutes here to talk, so I will go briefly into this. Our firm is a firm that specializes in customs and international trade related matters. We do customs like import related work with companies and advise them. We also do export controls and sanctions related work. We have an entire team that just focuses on export controls and sanctions. We also have a government relations team that focuses on trade and customs related issues as well. We started in 1977, and like I mentioned, we're a boutique international firm that's just focused on the movement, import and exportation of merchandise, duties, taxes, and fees, and the legal requirements associated with those. We have offices all over the United States and internationally. Let's see if I can minimize that. Here in the US on the East Coast, we also have some offices in China. And you know, with the world being the way it is now, we also have hundreds of professionals kind of around the country and the world that assist us as well, that might not be tied to a particular office. Our firm has a wide variety of professionals, so it's not just attorneys who work at our firm. I am one of the attorneys. We have former customs auditors and accountants. We have licensed customs brokers, folks who are litigators at the Court of International Trade or the Court of Appeals for the Federal Circuit. We have attorneys who just focus on export controls and sanctions work, attorneys who just focus on anti-dumping and countervailing duty. I specialize quite a bit on the import side of things, on complex valuation issues and how goods should be taxed. But our firm, we also have former members of U.S. Customs and Border Protection, the U.S. Trade Representative, Food and Drug Administration, the Department of Commerce, Department of Justice, and former elected officials, as well as congressional staffers on our team. We work with companies in all varieties of sectors. So this could be agricultural or prepared products, could be automotive and aerospace clients, it could be consumer electronics, machinery, petroleum, natural gas, and minerals. These are importers, exporters, customs brokers as our clients. We also have transportation and logistics providers. We also represent quite a few governments and chambers and associations. This is just a very brief services overview. I'm going to focus specifically on this export compliance piece today because that's really what we're talking about today, but you can see we offer a wide variety of services on all things international trade related. On the export compliance side of things, we help companies that are looking to classify their products for commodity jurisdiction purposes, whether you need a license or whether there's a license exception, which I'll talk about briefly. We also work with company on export controls and sanctions and embargoes, deemed export and technology transfers, export compliance programs, building those out, and if there's an investigation or a voluntary self-disclosure or an audit that is needed. We also have a wide, I just want to reference this out. I know others have talked about their website and some of the information that they have. If you go to strtrade.com, we have a wide variety of public webinars that are offered yearly on all sorts of topics on international trade. These could be 1 hour long, 2 hour long webinars. We have a whole list of on-demand webinars. We also have customized in-house training. So if companies are looking for that, we can customize that to a company's business. But then also there's just free trade report publications that we publish every single day, highlighting export controls and sanctions issues and anything relating to international trade that you can subscribe to as well. So I wanted to spend with the remainder of my time that I have just talking about some of the basics of export compliance. And again, this doesn't have to do with sales. This doesn't have to do with maximizing your business, which I know is what everybody is frankly on the call for. But keep this in your back pocket because I want everyone to walk away from this call and knowing that export compliance regulations don't just apply to the largest corporations. It doesn't just apply to Raytheon and Boeing and Airbus and these large corporations that are shipping goods around the world. It applies to all types of product or all types of businesses. Anyone who is exporting or sharing technology outside the United States or with foreign nationals are going to be subject to export control regulations. And there are substantial penalties for violating these rules. According to the Department of Commerce and the Bureau of Industry and Security, fines for export violations can reach up to $1 million per violation in criminal cases, not to mention potential jail time, while administrative cases, so more civil related cases, can result in penalties amounting to the greater of $250,000 or twice the value of the transaction. So you can see very quickly that this can have a very severe impact on your business if you are in violation of these regulations. The Bureau of Industry and Security publishes a book called Don't Let This Happen to You. I highly recommend that you download that if you're a new exporter and read it because it will talk about some of the basic things we're talking about today. I'm going to talk very briefly, just 6 very quick steps on what you should be thinking about from an export compliance standpoint. Number 1 is making sure that you properly classify your products. So a lot of businesses and individuals, they know about classifying a product for import purposes. Like Brent was talking about, if you're shipping something into Brazil, what's the duty rate going into Brazil? But you also have to keep in mind that you need to be able to understand whether the product has a control on it, meaning you can't send it to a particular country or to a particular end user. And the way you do that is to determine what the export control classification number is of that item. For commercial products, that's usually regulated by the Bureau of Industry and Security, while maybe more military related items, defense control items are regulated by the Department of State and the International Traffic in Arms regulations. And so you really have to kind of figure out which bucket you fall in. I would say most of the folks on this call, I would imagine, if not all of them, are going to be falling under the Bureau of Industry and Security and the Department of Commerce export administrative regulations. And so I mentioned one of the things you're going to need to be thinking about is when you're exporting a product, you're going to want to check to see what the export control classification number is and see how that product is regulated under the export administrative regulations or the EAR. When you figure out what your ECCN number is, that will basically give you the indication as to whether you need to apply for a license or not from the Department of Commerce just to be able to export the product. Products that do not have an ECCN code are generally not subject to control by the US agency and are designated as what's known as EAR 99. These are low technology consumer goods primarily, and they usually do not require a license. I'm guessing most of the folks on this call will be exporting products that are EAR 99, but you're going to want to make sure of that. You're also going to want to determine what the destination country requires for an export licenses. There are several reasons why the US government prevents exports to certain countries. You know, in the most extreme cases, we have embargoes against certain countries like Iran and Syria for supporting terrorist activities. In other cases, we restrict companies and individuals from exporting certain products to specific countries for reasons such as national security, nuclear non-proliferation, chemical and biological weapons, or several other reasons outlined in the EAR. So you're really going to want to make sure you know your ECCN number and try to determine which country you are sending these to determine if you need a license. In addition to what the product is and where it's going, you're also going to want to screen all the parties in your transactions. So sometimes it doesn't matter what the product is. If you're selling it to the wrong person, that can also be a violation of US law. There are lists, denied party or restricted party lists that are out there that identify the individuals, businesses, and other organizations with whom you cannot do business without a license. And so you're going to want to make sure that as part of your export sales process, you're screening who those customers are against those lists, or you're using some type of software solution to do that. You're also going to want to look for red flags. You know, is this a weird transaction? Is this person asking for more products than a normal purchaser would want to buy? Are they asking for these to be customized in a particular location? Are they asking that this be shipped to an odd location that isn't where this product's actually going to be used? You're really going to want to start asking questions like that as your business grows. I have a very quick example of someone that tried to ship aluminum tubing to a French tractor manufacturer, but that aluminum tubing was ultimately shipped to Iran and happens to be the exact type of aluminum tubing that's used for the enrichment of uranium. And so there are questions that you should be asking yourself. The Bureau of Industry of Security publishes a red flags list that you should read and become familiar with if you can. And then finally, you're really going to want to be aware of deemed exports. So in addition to just exporting something out of the country and getting a license, it's the same concept if you share an email with detailed blueprints or plans or technical data with someone, or you have a foreign national come and visit your facilities here in the United States. The US government views that as an export as well. And so you would need to go through the entire same process that you would in terms of applying for a license to ship something to a person in China, let's say, as you would to have a Chinese national come onto your facility or to email them something. And then lastly, you're really going to want to document compliance. Anything that you're doing now to make sure that you're complying with the law could be used if there's ever a question about violations. And you're going to need to maintain documentation of those export transactions for 5 years. And finally, even if you're hiring a wonderful freight forwarder or customs broker, it is your responsibility as the exporter or the principal party of interest under US law. So again, not to be a cold, wet blanket here, but it's one of these things that you need to make sure you're keeping in your back pocket and you're keeping in mind as part of your export transactions. And trying to be mindful of time. I see I'm at my 10 minutes, so I will kick it back over to you, Brad.
Well, thank you very much. Very informative, and as Roland pointed out, scary. It can be very scary when you don't have the knowledge needed to move forward with exporting or in any venture that you do, especially in exporting. I would believe, because there's so much out there, so many regulations and rules that you don't know about that you need to follow so you don't get fined $1 million or whatever the case is. And that's a real good point and purpose of today, is so that you can get that knowledge and build your confidence to be able to move forward, knowing that you're doing it the right way without having to worry too much about the backlash of being in violation of something. So definitely reach out to the partners that you see out here today. We still have about 20 minutes to do Q&A. If anyone has some questions they would like to put in the chat, or possibly, I'm not sure if it's, I think you can also raise your hand and unmute to ask your questions as well. Is that correct, Peter?
Yep, you could certainly do that. Yep, I know that I believe it was Roland had some questions about not questions, but pointed out some stuff about the SBA STEP application.
Yeah, I did see that Zeynep answered him in the text, but just so that everybody has that, would you be able to elaborate a little bit more on that, Zeynep?
Sure. So for the application, it needs to be pre-approved before you get reimbursed. So make sure to apply for it on our website, www.mitc.com. There's this under how we can help. I think there are grants, and then you can read about it, and then there's an application form there. So, and I'm going to correct myself, it's 75% to 25% match, not 80-20. So the company or the business covers the 25. And then once you apply for it, we have a panel, approval panel that reviews it, and me or any of my colleagues are happy to work with you to make sure before you submit the application that it's filled out correctly. You know, they're just trying to verify that you are a Maine-based small business, and that the purpose that you'll use this grant for is has an international component, and it falls within those buckets that it could be marketing, expansion, etc., and e-commerce, whatnot, and then you submit it, and then you get the approval, and then when you're ready to get reimbursed, you provide documentation that you paid, invoice, receipt, something like that, and that the either if it was training or website upgrade, whatnot, happened. And then you get it's quarterly payments. So if you applied at the beginning of the quarter, you'll get reimbursed. Usually it's at the end of the quarter you get reimbursed. But happy to answer all those questions during the process, and happy to work with you. And then I do also want to mention that if you wanted to hire either Mark's firm or Brent's firm, we would cover, up to a certain their services as well. It just needs to be pre-approved. Thank you, Mark, for your presentation. You covered a lot of the things that we actually try to work with. So that was great. And I made a note to check out your website and your webinars as well.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I just would like to say, that now that we've kind of got the dialogue going back and forth, my presentation should not be meant to discourage people from exporting. The goal of this is to make sure you have the tools and the resources that you feel confident exporting your products. My firm, we have an entire team of probably 15 lawyers that just do export controls and sanctions for some of the largest multinationals in the world, also for small businesses as well. And so it's one of these things that a lot of smaller businesses, we see that the primary focus, understandably, is to drum up business and to increase sales. But I just want to plant that flag for folks, so that, as you're increasing these sales and you start getting orders from different locations around the world, you might want to start doing some due diligence there to make sure that you're exporting appropriately to the right parties, and you're not going to end up tripping yourself up at the end of the day. I mean, it helps to get those structures in place. I saw Zeynep, your comment about getting a compliance checklist. I think that's a great idea, making sure you're doing the right things and you've got processes and procedures in place to help sure you're in compliance with the law.
And,
Sorry.
Oh, and I think we should let we'll try with we'll get you videos of all these webinars. I'm going to also try to get the link to that "Don't Let This Happen to You" that you mentioned, so people can get that too.
Yes. Before we get to Fred's question, I want to elaborate a little bit more with the STEP grant, the State Trade Expansion Program. As Zeynep mentioned, MITC handles Maine. So I know we may have people outside of Maine here that are looking to get assistance from a program like MITC with that State Trade Expansion Program. So you would have to, just do a Google search for State Trade Expansion Program in your area, because they can't really help you unless you are in their specific area. We did run into that with a business. Their headquarters is here in Maine, but their main part of the business that's happening was in another state. So there was a little bit of issue there of how it would work and where the grant would come from or through. So if you have questions like that, definitely you can reach out to myself. You can probably reach out to Zenup as well, not to put you on the spot, but you might be able to help find those other STEP grant recipients or participants.
Yes, definitely happy to help with that.
Fred, go ahead. Feel free to unmute yourself and ask your question.
Okay, I think I am unmuted.
Yes, sir. We can hear you.
I'm blind, so it's when you say, "Can you see this presentation?" I can't. I have several different things that I'm trying to do. I want to send apples and dried fruits to India, but the problem is I already have my contact. I have just about everything in place except for the licensings and the business plan. I can't write a business plan because I'm blind and I can't see where to write or what I'm writing. So is there anyone out there that can help me finish my business plan?
Tomorrow we have a webinar. Again, it's a webinar on the business plan process, but the Women's Business Center or the SBDC, we can certainly work to get that information to you in a format that's accessible. And we can work with you on any tools you might have. I know there's like, I work with quite a few people that have challenges that cross the spectrum. So I know some of my visually impaired people have like a PDF reader where I can send them stuff in a PDF and it reads it to them. So it kind of explains the business plan, so we can get you that. But long story short, there are tools available to help you, whether it be SBDC, as I said, or another resource. So certainly reach out to us. There's always a workaround. We just need to figure out what works best for you.
Okay, some of my products are not from Maine, but they are from the United States. Like, for example, my apples are either going to be coming from Washington State or New York State.
Yep.
But I'm going to be based in Maine. I am in Arbor, Maine. So,
I mean, the SBDC is nationwide, so there's always an SBDC anywhere in any state. And if your business is located in Maine, then you're fine. It doesn't matter necessarily where the product comes from. Some of my businesses, their products are completely from other countries, and the only thing they have tying them to Maine is that their business is registered and located here. So that's what matters to us as far as who you deal with is, are you a registered Maine business?
okay, thank you.
Yeah. And if you're not, I should clarify that. If you're not registered Maine business, that's fine. We just would hook you up with wherever you are registered, right? So if you're registered in New Hampshire, we can send you to the New Hampshire SBDC. And the reason for that is the SBDC is a combination of state tax money and federal tax money. So each SBDC gets funded by their state as well to deal with registered businesses within their state.
So Fred, I have a quick question for you. You say you have a buyer in India, and what do those transactions look like? $10,000 of apples that are being shipped to India, and are you extending terms? And just some basic questions about what the transaction might look like, and are those, I presume, ongoing regular transactions with a particular person who becomes your distributor in India?
Well, yes, I do have someone, and it's 20 to 60 tons of apples per month.
What's the dollar amount of that? What would the dollar amount be? About?
I'm looking per year or per month or?
Just per shipment.
Per shipment, I'm looking at about $120,000 per shipment, which is monthly.
Are you extending terms to the buyer?
Letter of credit.
Okay, and that's, you've set that up and that's arranged?
Everything has been arranged, except for I don't have a business plan and I don't have the money to buy the apples.
So you have a working capital need for sure.
And
Yeah.
that'll be discussed even more on day 4 of this as well, when we're talking about obtaining capital for your exporting venture.
Yeah, my dry blueberry, I'll probably do between $10,000 to $15,000 a month.
Well, I talk to small companies all the time that are kind of in this situation. So Fred, so my telephone number's 720-841-6371. And feel free to give me a call at some point and we can brainstorm a few of these things. And I would certainly love to help you, get going in the right direction, as I know everybody on this call would. So, but I can certainly be a bit of help with some of these issues. So give me a call the next week or so.
Can you give me your phone number again, please?
Yes, it's area code 720-841-6371.
Thank you very much.
And Fred, it might be a matter of working with a few of us rather than, I don't know if there's one silver bullet here.
I would like to work with all of you. I mean,
Yeah.
I have my contact in India, and he doesn't only just apply to India. He's basically all over Asia, and it's been someone that under the table I've been doing for a couple of years. Now it's gotten to a size that I can't do it under the table anymore. I have to do it legally, and I'm the table, and so I got to manage it to make sure that I dot my I's and cross my T's.
Right. So it might be a call to Mark too.
Yeah, that was great. I was having earmuffs on when the table discussion was having, but yes, you will. And, I think we would usually get involved on issues like this, the same way Brent asked questions about what the transaction looks like. I would be looking at things like, who's issuing purchase orders? What are those terms on those POs? Do you have sales contracts, distributor agreements? Who's acting as the exporter of record? Who's acting as the importer of record into India or these other domestic markets there? Who's paying for freight? Who's paying for insurance? Who's paying for all of these things regarding the movement of the actual goods? And just to make sure that's clean cut and you're protected as best you can be. That's one of our roles in these transactions as well. So
I do know that it's going to be CIF. They don't want to do any FOB. And I believe there's a company called SAS or something like that shows and sends documents and pictures of the product. And
the SAS is the way they look it over when it leaves. You see the status that it's in. They make a report, a quality report, and
Sure.
then they do the other end.
right, and that's all purchased by the. That's all done by the buyer.
understood. Well, keep in mind under CIF terms, those are international commercial terms. You would be the risk of loss to the goods would transfer when the goods were delivered on board the vessel, assuming it's an ocean vessel going versus an aircraft. But you would be responsible for arranging international freight and insurance. That's what the I and the F stand for in that term. And so assuming you're okay with that, and that's the agreed upon term between the parties, that's fine. Parties are free to negotiate those. But if you don't want to cover the international freight insurance, then obviously you would be wanting to sell on an FOB port of US export term or something like that. But we can certainly advise you on that as well.
Thank you.
So Mark, on that same note, I'm sure you've seen it many times that somebody with perishable goods ships it to the overseas, to the country, to the importing country, and it gets to the dock and it's sitting there, and what if the buyer doesn't accept the goods at that point?
Yeah.
So perishable goods, that's CIF. You want to manage that carefully.
Right. You're going to want to make sure when title, but meaning legal ownership of the goods is transferred from you, the seller, to the buyer, as well as risk of loss transfers. And generally those two risk of loss is usually dealt with by the Incoterms, but title can also transfer at the same time. And so I'm guessing with perishable goods, this may be an air shipment, as Brent is kind of alluding to here. And so you're just going to want to make sure you're very clear as to when the goods are yours and when delivery occurs, because when delivery occurs, that's when legal title would transfer and technically you would no longer be the owner of those goods. And then the buyer would be responsible for them.
Okay, so I need that documentation.
Yes, I would absolutely want that document. And again, that should be coming initially from their purchase order to you. They should be issuing a purchase order for $100,000 worth of apples, buying under these particular terms. And as long as you're comfortable with what those terms are and when risk of loss and title transfers from you to that buyer in India, you should be okay. But again, that's where legal issues arise, as Brent was, I think, very, very clearly noting. Sometimes those goods get to the port in India and no one makes entry. And then they sit and they spoil on the dock or they spoil on board that vessel. And the Indian buyer is saying, well, those aren't my goods. And you're saying, well, technically I already sold them to you. And so you need to be very clear where in the transaction risk of loss and title transfers. So you've got a legal proper claim there.
Okay.
Awesome. This has been a great discussion. Thank you so very much for your questions there, Fred. That helped bring the discussion more fruitfully. Appreciate it.
Pun intended, yeah.
Well,
So we only have a couple of minutes left of the program here. And I know I want to be respectful of everyone's time and have busy schedules. So would any of the presenters like to have any last, the final words that you'd like to talk about?
I one quick comment. I've done the STEP grants before for Navitrade for my company, actually, on a trade mission, and the STEP program is fantastic. Great. It's just really great. So all small companies especially should get familiar with that and use it. It's like those are funds waiting for you to be had. So thank you, Zainab, for that. That's just it's a great program.
Thank you, Brent, and everyone for including us. But yes, we can use the grants for Brent's services or Mark's firm's services and any other expertise that you might need, and also for trade show participation and whatnot. We do have, it's kind of on a yearly, so the current grant ends on the end of September. So we're just trying to kind of get this year's grants used and applied for and used and reimbursed. So just keep that in mind, and happy to chat with all of you, each of the businesses there individually as well. And I do also want to say that I really appreciate in Maine, we're very collaborative, SBDC, SBA, you know, Brand's firm, and now that we met with Mark, I'm hoping to connect with him as well. It's just great. We can reach out to each other quickly and really help the clients. And in Fred's case, you know, here, like, there were really good feedback, and we're all happy to just kind of, if you're not ready for MITC yet, SBDC can kind of get the business plan in order, and then when you're ready, we'll take over. And we just kind of, and I just really appreciate that. I just wanted to say that. For everyone's sake, I guess. Yeah. Thank you.
I think what Fred really highlighted was that there's a lot of experts out there that we have in Maine that can help you with certain things, right? It's complex. It's not to dissuade you, not to say, hey, you can't do it, right? I've seen very micro small businesses get into export successfully, but you know, that's what we're here for, is to help you get to that finish line, but to help you get to the finish line correctly, right? To make sure you're dotting all your I's, crossing all your T's, make sure you're, like Mark, aware of different issues that might come up, or Brent, how to do the logistics here, you know, or MTIC, just to understand some of the research that goes into it. And there's more than just us on the panel here, right? Maine, as Zainab just said, is very collaborative. So we're going to point you to a resource. We're going to find a resource, and Mainers, we find a way as well. So Fred, as we said, if the visual is something that we need to work on, then we'll find a way to get you the information. So.
Excellent. Thank you all to our panelists. Knowledge is confidence. So continue using these resources and others that are here in Maine, as we've mentioned, and keep building your confidence and building your knowledge so you can move forward and be successful in exporting. Really appreciate you being here today. I'd like to invite you to join us tomorrow and Thursday as well. Tomorrow at 11:30, it will be Grace Moe Phillips presenting on export business planning. So we hope you will be joining us tomorrow.
Thanks, Brad.
Yeah, thank you for hosting.
Thank you. Have a wonderful day.